What's happening, everybody? Jay Shockblast here. And man, oh man, am I excited. Yesterday, DC and the CW network released our first look at DC's Legends of Tomorrow. So, this is going to be a spin off show of a spin off show where you have, characters that have come up through both Arrow and The Flash teaming up and creating a third TV show. And it's quite the interesting, eclectic group of characters. Our heroes of tomorrow will include, um, Ray Palmer as the Atom, Brandon Routh, obviously reprising his role. It will also include Victor Garber as half of Firestorm. Um, so I'm interested and intrigued to see how that works out because there has been no mention of Robbie Amell being involved. Now, there is a point in the comics where Firestorm, granted, there's a different person involved, where Firestorm, has like that reverse costume where it's like red and yellow, and there's two Firestorms. So that should be interesting to see what they do there. Also involved, we have Hawk Girl. Now, this is actually a new character for the show, being played by Sierra Renee. They do mention her as a. I forget exactly what the wording they used was, but Victor Garber was doing kind of like the monologue, talking about who all the characters were. And they talk about a girl with a death complex or something. Or they basically they reference the fact that she is reincarnated quite often. So then we have two bad guys. We have Heatwave and we have Captain Cold. So as far as that's concerned, Wentworth Miller back as Captain Cold and Dominic Purcell as Heatwave. And that obviously might come across as odd and interesting. But, you know, it makes sense, I guess, once you start looking into it a little bit further when you listen to one of the other new characters that's going to be involved in the show, and that is Arthur Darvill as Rip Hunter. So, Rip Hunter is a time traveler from the future that is assembling this team, and he has a little bit of a story to tell in this trailer as well. The last character that I've obviously saved for last for a reason is a character who a lot of people have been wondering how she would be involved since she's technically dead, and that is Sarah Lance. And what's interesting is Sarah Lance is no longer the Canary or the Black Canary. She is now the White Canary. And, obviously, this is where I'll get into what I think about everything. So it's a weird team. I feel like they took a lot of great actors and actresses and threw them together and said, hey, this would be an interesting show. Give us Brandon Routh the opportunity to kind of star in the show. I feel like he's going to be the central figure of it, kind of like the Arrow and the Flash of the show, if that makes sense. Um, Having Heatwave and Captain Cold involved should be interesting. I think it's going to keep this team on their toes. Let me read the synopsis from IMDb of the show. When heroes alone are not enough, the world needs legends. Having seen the future, one he will desperately try to prevent from happening, time-traveling rogue Rip Hunter is tasked with assembling a desperate group of both heroes and villains to confront an unstoppable threat, one in which not only is the planet at stake, but all of time itself. Can this ragtag team defeat an immortal threat unlike anything they have ever known? That immortal threat is Vandal Savage, Not known who's going to play him yet. So let's talk about the trailer. Now, there's a few things to keep in mind when you're watching this trailer. Lots of spoilers, and in that regard, I'm a little disappointed. So from here on out, there will be just a couple spoilers. So it makes sense the way that they do the trailer, because as far as the trailer is concerned, it starts off being narrated by the two stars of the shows that this show is spinning off of, and that is, Oliver Queen as the Arrow, and it's important for me to say Oliver Queen as the Arrow, and then obviously Barry Allen as the Flash. So the reason why this is sort of important is the fact that the last we saw of Oliver Queen, as of this trailer being posted, the last we see of Oliver Queen is that he's riding off into the sunset with Felicity saying he's retired and that he's done. But here he is helping assemble this crew. On top of that, the last we see of Ray Palmer is him exploding in his laboratory. And that is referenced at the end of the trailer where Sarah Lance and Dr. Martin Stein are sitting in a lab or whatever and looking at him and saying, "So you didn't die, you just got smaller." So I feel like those are two major spoilers that kind of give away what's going to start with all three, well, with two of the series, with Arrow and, Legends of Tomorrow. So I don't know if that was necessarily the right approach. And then, of course, the last we saw Sarah Lance, she was also dead. And I believe pretty much the entire season of Arrow centered around a war between the League of Assassins and Oliver Queen, because Sarah Lance was in fact dead. It also centered around, Detective Lance or Captain Lance, turning on the Arrow because his daughter was dead at one point. It involved Laurel keeping secrets from her father. So now all of a sudden, in this trailer, we see, the White Canary, Sarah Lance, emerge from the Lazarus Pit. So my question is, how did she get there, number one? When did she get there, number two? And why didn't she get there sooner, number three? So clearly they used the Lazarus Pit on Thea Queen, or Thea Merlin, whatever she's being called. They used the Lazarus Pit on her. They were aware of the Lazarus Pit's existence. At what point, why didn't they go to that sooner? Excuse me. Why didn't they go to that sooner? Especially Nyssa. Like, Nyssa should have known completely that there was a Lazarus Pit, since it's what has kept her father alive for so long. Why didn't they take Katie or Sarah there sooner? It doesn't. These are just the questions I have. Look, I'm excited for this series. I will just let it go. As far as that's concerned, I'm not really all worked up about it, but it just seems odd, if you will, that this would all of a sudden happen now, rather than earlier in the season, when it seems like if they had just gone to the Lazarus Pit sooner, that it would have alleviated a lot of issues throughout the season. But obviously we wouldn't have had our season of Arrow that way if she had just, come back to life right away. And, we wouldn't have Laurel rightfully ascending to her role as the Black Canary. Wouldn't have the Canary Cry. Now, another interesting thing about White Canary is White Canary is an actual character in DC Comics and is not Sarah Lance. So they are definitely stretching an actual character for the purpose of the show, which, honestly, if you read about White Canary, you read that she's a nemesis of the Black Canary, and I can't honestly say I've ever heard of a White Canary. So I'm not necessarily the biggest DC Comics fan, but I do feel like I know a little bit about a little bit, so Not the end of the world. Usually, I'm not really interested in character changes, stuff like that. So whatever, I'm not too worried. Um, Sierra Renee as Hawkgirl. Now, for me, normally I would get upset, about casting and everything, but Hawkgirl is originally an Egyptian. What color Hawkgirl is? I feel like she's been white, she's been black, so and currently I believe she is a black character in the comics. So, quite frankly, whoever they cast, they cast. I really like. I don't know who Sierra Renee is, to be honest with you. I've never seen her in anything else, but I really like her look. Like I really feel like she's gonna fill the role really well. So I'm definitely interested to see how that plays out. Captain Cold and Heatwave. Obviously, like all of you, I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. They are bad guys and bad dudes, but they question it in the trailer. What about us? We're villains, and Rip Hunter basically says, "Hey, look, we need you, and you're gonna be an integral part of this." So what's going to be interesting is there is going to be time travel involved. So they're going to be traveling through time, so that should keep the show pretty fresh and interesting. I don't know anything about what they're doing with Vandal Savage yet, but I guess we'll see that soon. Um, it's very clear that characters from all three shows are going to cross over with each other into the other shows, which I think is really fascinating. I'm also interested to see if Supergirl somehow gets involved, and I'm really hoping that Constantine gets picked up by CW, and maybe we can somehow get him involved. Um, but overall, it's a really exciting trailer. I'm willing to put up with the spoilers. You know, Obviously we know Oliver Queen is not retired. We know he's going to come back to being the Arrow. Um, so it's not really a shock for them to kind of insinuate that to have him up there talking about him needing help. That's something that he made clear in his kind of closing speech to his team. His biggest issue is he didn't reach out for help as much as he should have, and that's something that he needs to do now. So that really fits that kind of dialogue and monologue, if you will. Um, so I'm okay with that, but you can't have him ride off into the sunset and then the next day unveil a trailer where he's basically recruiting a team after the fact. You know what I mean? It just it kind of like nulls a little bit of the suspense because I think there's a lot of people that just don't know better that are actually thinking that he's retired as the Arrow. Um, when something's clearly going to happen that brings him back. Um, so we'll see what happens there. Also, you're not making people go through the whole season or the whole off season wondering what's happening with Ray Palmer. You kind of just skipped right to the, oh, hey, I'm not dead, and hey, I can shrink. Because they do show the atom shrinking in that actual trailer right at the end. Um, so that's interesting. What's also interesting is something I had speculated was I was thinking that because of the explosion, that his shrinking would have been like a meta-human thing and not a suit thing, but it does appear that they are still going with the suit being where his powers come from. So we'll see. I mean, that's still a little unclear, but and the last thing that I definitely want to find out is how Dr. Martin Stein plays into all of this. Does he suit up as a second Firestorm? An old guy Firestorm doesn't make sense to me. Is Robbie Amell going to be involved with the Firestorm stuff? He does in the when he's talking about each character, he does mention that his partner is combustible. So there's that, and yeah, I'm really excited for this, man. I had to just obviously get off my chest, the fact that they kind of screwed up some of the spoilers and stuff. But that trailer was awesome. It really has me excited for the show. I really didn't know what to expect out of it. And I think a lot of you are like me and just really fired up for it. This does have the potential to be the third part of an awesome week. And, it already sucks that I have to give up 2 hours of my week. I don't know. That's an inside joke for another time, maybe. It doesn't suck to give up 2 hours of my week for these shows. I will gladly give up 3 for this. I'm just excited, and I'd love to know what you guys think. So let me know, and we'll catch you later. See ya.